think is the mic on? All right. Appreciate everyone's patience. We had a longer Finance Committee meeting than we anticipated. But I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. Yes, thank you. Again, I'd like to welcome you here, those of you who are also streaming the meeting as well. And I think I only had one individual who at this time. So Chris, I'd like for you to come forward. I think we have a microphone for you up there.
Good evening. Thank you. Hey, first off, I want to just thank you guys for the job that you do by volunteering to run, to be school board members. Too many times people just show up to complain and not give appreciation for what you do. Take your time out of your lives to do this, to try to help the school and better the school and the children. So thank you. That being said, I'm here on my own tonight. I wasn't approached by anybody to approach the school board. I'd like to make sure that anybody who applies for a coaching position has a fair and honest evaluation of their talents, and that personal feelings of individuals are not taken into account. I don't believe that our school district has the luxury to turn people away just because we don't like them. I am shocked at the number of students we have lost in the last couple of years, and with the loss of students go the loss of parents and volunteers, and I don't think we can afford to discount or refuse somebody just because we don't care for them. So that's all I want to say is just please give everybody a fair chance when they apply for a position. Thank you.
All right, Chris, thank you for sharing. And presentations this evening, we don't have the ability to do the exemplary this evening due to and everything.
Monticello this evening and will join us next month.
All right. Any of you have been driving down the Route 136 at all lately? You can see that the other
Sapphire Sky.
has been going to town to work with the turbines over in that area. Chelsea, you're going to have several in your backyard? Yeah. Transportation?
Deborah, come on up. While Deborah's walking up, you'll see in front of you this page printed with some numbers on it. There was a change in one of the numbers from what Deborah had submitted originally, so you have a fresh copy right there. And then Jason had asked a question today. Deborah might refer to this second page, which is talking about how many kids are on each bus route currently. Okay, go ahead, Deborah.
Hello?
Yep.
It is. All right, as you can see, what we had this year currently, and the proposal for next year, we've made a couple changes to our proposal. One, with the lack of staff and the students being overcrowded on the buses, I would recommend the 83 passenger, because a few extra seats make a big difference when you're talking about kids in a seat. Our buses are made for capacity is 3 kids, preschool age, into a seat. So when you look at the one paper I have, and you see the count of the kids on the buses, those are not all preschoolers, so they're a bit crowded on the bus. And so to give them a little extra room, parents a little more comfort with the COVID going on, I recommend the 83 passengers. Also, they went to gas instead of diesel, and after talking to both salesmen, to Leroy, to the gentleman who delivers our fuel, which is also on Leroy School Board, A lot of them are going to gas now and getting rid of the diesels. The manufacturers are not manufacturing any bigger buses such as 83s in diesels. So I couldn't even get a quote on a diesel in an 83. So that's one of the reasons why we looked at the internationals versus the Bluebirds this year. Plus the Bluebirds that we got last year, after they were lost and the individual things wrong with each one of them, I'm kind of leery about getting a Bluebird this year with everything still going on. So the correction I made was on bus number 56. I had it as a 77 passenger. It's actually a 62 with 2 wheelchair lifts or 2 wheelchair placements. And that was the only thing I had changed on that report. We did not go with any new vehicles this year. One, they did not do a state bid this year, so we'd have to pay full price. And I didn't see it feasible because the mileage is still good enough on the vehicles that we have that we should have to pay full price. Hopefully this coming year we'll get a new state bid and be able to do the rotation on the maintenance trucks like we normally do on the 3rd year. But I didn't want to risk that point at this time. Also, we had gotten a new white bus, an activity bus, during the school year this year. I say new, it was new to us, not new completely, with very low mileage. And I would like to be able to look for another one maybe down the road because the 10-passenger vans, they've stopped making for Ford. You cannot get a 10, they're going back to 8 and 7s. So that makes them not as useful because we can use a 14-passenger minibus in many different ways, from coaches driving them to having extra kids on it if we needed to with a licensed driver. So I just put that down there as a reserve so that we can maybe discuss it later if I find one. Right now, nobody has any available because everybody wants them. And that's about it. Is there any questions?
I know this, the second sheet was just for questioning how the students were on student routes. My question would be, when we had to consolidate runs, what was the capacity in the buses?
Before we consolidated?
Well, when we consolidated some routes.
This is what it is right now with the consolidation, where we had 8 routes and now we have 5 routes. So we've done a lot of pushing kids together. Parents have taken their kids off the buses because of the overcrowding, where they think that they're going to catch COVID on the bus. And that's the reason we're a little bit lower than the numbers at the beginning of the year. They would have probably been a bit higher, and just a little shock going on with the numbers that we had on the buses. We did not go over capacity, though.
So I saw on the bid that they have potential for cameras as well. Is that
Yes.
something that we put in ourselves as opposed to using theirs?
We could use our old cameras. The problem is this year, with as much video as I've watched and the imaging on the cameras that are in there right now is not very good. So I'm having a trouble with identifying people, and it's hard enough with all of us wearing masks and the hats and the coats, and it makes it really difficult. So when I take a picture of a picture that is not very good to begin with and say, Katie, identify this kid for me, it's not working out very well. Some of them, we have 3 different camera systems in our buses. I would like to see us be able to get to one so that we're unified. The ones that are coming in these buses, if we get them with the new cameras, will be updated. They're able to zoom in, and it just will make a big difference with it. At the end of the lease, they would be paid for so we could take them out and use them in future buses.
Is that something to talk to Mr. Kramer about to see if those cameras work the same way? Or I don't know anything about the cameras, so I just didn't know the systems that they used, if that was something that we need to talk to our technology people about to
I don't
see if
think
those
that
are...
he knows anything about the bus cameras.
Okay.
There's what? Yes. And there's night vision for the night trips. All that is involved in it.
Night vision.
And I just had one more question. I also saw that at least one of the companies that had a bid in there had stated that their seats are seatbelt ready.
Yes.
What does it take to put seatbelts in a school bus?
Okay, underneath the seat cushion itself, there are actually holes that are designed for installing your seatbelts. So at any time that we need a seatbelt, we can just take the bolt and put it in, lock it down. And then on certain buses, we also have the harnesses in the front seats for the pre-K or special needs. And then I have seats that go in for the ones that those do not fit with that will fit those.
All right, thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Deborah, there's no difference in the CDL passenger endorsement between a 77 and an 83, correct?
No.
It's still all the same?
No, it's only an actual 16 inches longer.
Okay.
Good question.
That is a good question. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Communications, we had a FOIA request or anything?
FOIA request, Smart Procure likes to ask us a lot of questions, and simply they want to know what we're purchasing for the last 3 months, so.
And moving on to the committee reports.
So we met tonight with Kent Kuhl from our auditor's firm, and he presented the annual financial report to us. We will talk about approving that later in new business. I don't know if you wanted to highlight anything. We had no material findings in our audit, which is good news for the district. We're in good financial standing at this point. And he gave us some recommendations for things that we can improve upon, and is willing to help us with those recommendations.
Yes. And we got a good grade. Out of 4.0, we are now 3.9, so
Yes.
that went up.
Good GPA.
All right. Moving on to the administrative reports.
Okay, that would be me. A lot of our time has been spent with COVID and shield testing. I haven't talked to the principals about this, but we just got our new ISB weekly email with some more changes about test to stay and when kids can come back and what they can compete and all the days that we have to keep track of. So we'll start to digest that. I will note that we've been running the district without either nurse for some days now. So your principals sitting before you are working pretty much around the clock. We let them sleep for a couple hours, but they're checking results from the minute they walk out of school through the evening. There's a group text that goes around every single night, throughout the weekend sometimes too, with positive results and phone calls being made to families, and then close contact information starting up the next day. So it's the one thing we know that doesn't change, that we always have to do shield information every single day. I think last night was 27 was our number last night of new positives just overnight. And I'm not sure if anybody's seen anything from today yet. No results yet? Okay, so they get text messages even when new shield results come in. So I'm being a little bit humorous. I'm attempting to be there, but it's really been a major impact, and a lot of decisions. We meet on a pretty regular basis just talking about can we make it through the next few days with staff. So I give a loud shout out to the nurses and secretaries and principals and Deborah and everybody who's making changes at the last minute. Strategic planning, we had talked about continuing to add to each board goal, one per month. We were going to add some sub-goals that we were proposing to you, not for anything to be officially approved, but this month the area was district finances, and one of the broad board goals that was developed on October 16th with our strategic planning committee was to increase community education of district finance. So the sub-goal that we're proposing to you is that the superintendent will continue to regularly present district financials at the Board of Education meetings, including quarterly financial reports, annual budget, annual tax levy. The presentations will be explanatory in nature, recorded, and made available on the district's YouTube account. So that's something, if we approve this plan, we would work towards. Data sources would be board member feedback and YouTube hits, and monitoring could be quarterly. The second broad board goal for district finances was to continue fiscal responsibility. I would say we got a good report tonight in that area, but the proposed sub-goal would be that the superintendent will continue to attend finance workshops and consult with a school finance coach when creating the annual budget and tax levy, monitor the progress and potential income of wind farms within district boundaries, and use the 2022 negotiation cycle to create a financially competitive salary package while remaining mindful of budgetary constraints. Data sources would be workshop attendance for me, coach meeting schedule, wind farm communications, and the new CBA, and monitoring could be quarterly. Any comments on those proposed sub-goals?
I had a
Alrighty.
question. Are you going on to just your financial or?
Sure, unless you have a question.
I had back to the beginning statement on the number. I just wanted to clarify, what's the threshold that determines if we go remote? Is it based mainly on staffing, inadequate staffing, or a number, specific number?
Well, there's a lot of different language out there, and there's districts doing whatever they can to survive right now. Technically, what we're working with is a 10% in a certain group. A 10% positive rate would give you the outbreak status. So earlier this year, we had something like that on the intermediate side in grade 4, 5. And right now, Ryan has that situation going on in a classroom in grade 2. Katie might be looking at that for 7th grade right now. So when positives come across, if you have 10%, you could say 10% in the classroom or 10% in the grade level when they mix around a little bit more, then I'll be honest, the health department isn't giving as much guidance as they used to. And when we call and ask to confirm if we have outbreak status, they simply send us a copy of the same document that we're looking at. So we don't really get much feedback from them. But when we hit that outbreak status, it becomes difficult to maintain we don't feel like it's safe to have everybody in there when COVID is spreading so quickly in those areas. At some points, we have had staffing concerns. With so many staff members out, sometimes it's been difficult we've run out of subs. And the principals are already subbing in classrooms on a regular basis. So that's typically when the 6 a.m. text goes out and we talk about, do we have enough staff for today?
Okay. All right. Further questions, you can go on.
Alrighty, so quarterly financial report. So if I'm doing what I would like to say that I'm doing through strategic planning, I would ask you to turn your attention to the quarterly financial report. What I look at on here is in the left column, column D, that's our unaudited fund balance as of tonight. We'll be able, the next time we have one of these quarterly financial reports, we'll be able to have an audited fund balance as of June 30th of 2021. So we will get those numbers changed. The green column, column E and H, those are from our budget, the approved revenues that you've already approved, obviously, and column H, the approved expenditures. What I change every 3 months is I go into column F and talk about our actual revenues by fund. And so everything that's in the yellow column right there, those are up-to-date numbers as of December 31st of 2021. And then I go to column I, and I do the same thing for our expenditures in each fund. And then what you want to look at to see your health financially is column G first, the percentage of revenues received to date. So we're halfway through, as of December 31st, we're halfway through our fiscal year. So I'm looking right there and I'm seeing, okay, in our education fund, we've received more than half of our revenues. When you look down at the O&M fund, it's 46%. See how that's different than most of those operating funds right there? So then I go and look at what's causing that? Why don't we have as much revenue in that fund? And so that is a direct impact from ESSER 3 money. So ESSER 3 money, there's a lot of things that are going to happen in the O&M fund, but with the ESSER money, you have to spend it before you get it. So if we haven't spent that yet, that's why we don't have the revenues back from the entity that's paying those. So that's why that's a little bit lower. Then I go down to the bottom, funds 30, 50, 60, 80, and 90. And again, I look through and I see, okay, everything's in the 60 percentages there. And then I hit that health, life, safety amount. Why do I only have 40% of my revenue in fund 90? So looking back at my budget, We had placed in there the school maintenance grant, which we are recipients of that grant. That's going to do the rest of the VAV box project at the high school. That was, half of it was started right as Susan transitioned into me. So there is $50,000 of anticipated revenue, but once again, we have to spend before we get that money given to us. So that's why it looks like we only have a smaller percentage in health, life, safety so far. Then, let's see what else I do. I look at column J, expenditures to date. And so if you look up at the top again, it looks like we've spent a little bit less in the ed fund than we thought, and that's a very conservative budgeting. That's a result of conservative budgeting. 50%, wow, right on the nose for O&M and transportation. And then if you look down, bond and interest, so the schedule for when you pay your bond payment really dictates that. So the 83% is not a problem. It's an anticipated expenditure at a different time of year. Our Fund 60 is a little bit lower. Again, that's some of the grant project work that we're doing. And our health, life, safety, since we haven't started that VAV box project, we're not seeing the expenditures in that fund yet either. Two things that I wanted to note. Down at the bottom, you'll see in type, the projected working cash fund balance reflects a $315,000 transfer to site and construction fund. So I'll take you to column L. If you go down to working cash in column L, that number in bold, 646,275, that is representing that we've already transferred, not spent, but transferred $315,000 out of working cash and put it into, go straight down in that column where you see the negative 11,476. You see that in red. That's less of a deficit because the $315,000 is already sitting in Fund 60. And we're going to be spending for the bus barn out of the construction of the office building out of that fund. So since that's not actual money coming in or money going out yet, you don't spend out of working cash. So we just had to record that transaction happened, but it looks a little bit different. So basically we're doing okay 6 months in, and we just found out that we had a good starting point right before the 6 months. So I think we're doing pretty good right now. Anybody have any questions I can try to answer?
No.
And again, this will look different next time in the next 3 months because we'll have an audited fund balance that we can start from.
All right. Ryan, you're up next.
All right, I just have two quick updates tonight. The first one is just for those of you listening at home, those parents, we do have a dental clinic that's coming to Snyder Elementary. This is something that we do annually. It's at the end of January, but it's a great service that we do with the County Health Department, where individuals who do participate in that are able to get the examination, sealants, and a variety of things. And basically, if they attend, it does cover all the state requirements that the state asks for dental examination through school. The other piece that we have is just, I was going to update you, we have a couple of benchmarking things going on right now. We're doing our Ames Web benchmarking, which we do 3 times a year. So that'll kind of give us a good idea of where we started in fall and where we are in winter. So we should hopefully have that information by the end of next week, once students are back. And then additionally, we do our Fondas and Pinnell benchmarking. For those of you who are not sure what that is, that is an assessment that we do that allows us to basically measure our students' current reading levels. And so basically we get 2 numbers from that. We get an instructional level and an independent reading level. And so we use that to really guide our instruction in small reading groups throughout the school year. So that's all that I have. It's pretty short. It's been a short but long month. So, yeah.
Any questions? All right. Katie up next.
Good evening, everybody. I have a few updates tonight. I want to officially welcome 3 of our new staff members. We have Ms. Amanda Moore in 8th grade English, Mr. Alex Chapman in junior high science, and Mr. Zach Markopoulos in junior high PE. And they have gotten off to a great start, and they're already just right in there with the kids and the team, and we're very thankful to have them with us. We have brought back, much to our kids' delight, the PBIS cart at lunch every other week, where they get to spend their night shields. And our student council is running that for us, and they did a great job with the assistance of our newest mascot for Blue Ridge Intermediate Junior High. We are thankful that The high school student council gave us their old mascot uniform so we could get started, and we have a couple kids who have volunteered to be the mascot and kind of work out some sort of rotation there. So once we get them all out of quarantine, we'll be able to have the mascot come back again. So the mascot did make their debut at the volleyball game this last week, though. Do you have any questions for me?
No, thanks. All right, Brian, moving right along.
Going short and sweet tonight. I provided some great data for you guys in the packet. I think, did it get included? Because I couldn't figure out how to cut and paste, so I did a separate PDF. So did you guys get that table with the grades?
Yes,
first?
we
Okay,
did.
all right, cool. So just as I'm trying to do with our different grade level teams, did you guys have any questions about that? Anything jump out at you that you would like me to try to dig into or respond to?
Was that clear? Okay. I didn't have any questions.
Perfect. Okay. And, let's see. I do have one more thing that just as there's a shortage of basically everything going around, one of the things we're seeing is it's getting more and more competitive to try to find sports officials, and Evan has put together a proposal to increase our pay for sports officials by a small amount, but just to help us keep competitive with local districts, because we all compete for the same officials, basically, sort of like we do with substitutes. So in the first column, we've got what we're currently paying for this school year, or I'm sorry, for 2021 rate. Here's what it was for each of those individual sports. And then proposed rate increase would actually begin with the spring seasons with softball and baseball, just an increase of $5 per game per umpire. I did ask Evan to then estimate for me, well, how many total umpires are we talking for this, and how many games are we talking? What's the overall increase going to look like per season? And it comes to roughly about a $700 increase in officials' fees for the entire school year for next year. And again, there are, for instance, with football, we're currently paying $72.50 for each official, and it's there's 5 officials on our games, and he's proposing that for next year we up that to 80. There are some schools that are paying as much as $100 per official for those crews. So just trying to remain relatively competitive and able to retain officials. So just this, I didn't have this in time to include it in the report, so throwing it your way. Does this look good, or is that something we talk about later?
Yeah, and then we can bring it back next month for approval.
Okay.
What was
fair enough.
you said the fiscal cost increase if you went with the,
It'd be about $700 for a school year.
all right. All right, thank you. Any questions for Brian? All right, thank you much. Moving on to curriculum, is there anything you need to share there for Paige, or?
I don't think so. She probably has a very thorough report in there. She's been spending the majority of her time at the intermediate junior high, and she apologizes she wasn't able to be here tonight.
And we have the technology report there, you saw as well, and operations, maintenance, transportation, food services, or any questions on any of those?
Wonderful. Got done on time. Tanya was thrilled. She came in. I think she and Pam snuck in very early one morning while things were out of there and did a deep cleaning underneath, because they were getting ready to just bring everything in. Tanya was like, "No, I need to clean in there." So they were able to get in and do a deep clean. It's very nice. She was going to send me pictures. I forgot to get those before tonight. I didn't know if we wanted to. Oh, okay, great. Great. So she's very pleased. They got good instructions from the team that installed as to what to do and what not to do. So went very smoothly.
Moving on to consent items. I need a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items listed on attachment A as presented. Yes. Moving on to new business. Turn my page here.
Okay, so I wanted to explain why there's a change here on the agenda. So recently, within the last few months or so, I was in a workshop. Can't remember which workshop it was, honestly. But they said that each board policy, when you get a press packet like this, needs to be listed out separately on the agenda in case somebody from the public is looking for a certain policy that they want to make sure that they can come and speak about. So we made sure that you see the very long list of all the policies that Kenna and Chelsea have been anxiously looking through and making sure. There are some, what I did this time going through, since the packet was so long, I started making notes to myself about what things would need to change at the beginning of the year, announcements that we'd have to make to staff. There's some comments that I have for Paige, there's some comments that I have for the tech department, and then there's still some outstanding questions that we have. For example, one of the curriculum policies talks about sex education, and that has been one of the topics that we've talked about with the board and had some guests come and speak about. The new national standards, we had talked about not using those, but maintaining the sex education materials that we had adopted a few years ago. And so I want to make sure we work with Jeff Funk to make sure we're answering the questions correctly for the press packet so we get the right version of the policies that we want to have. So there's a little bit of work to do, but you're welcome to read through the very thick packet of policies, and if you have any questions, we have until next month before approval time.
That's it on the new business, or actually, no, we got a motion here. We need to discuss further the approval of the transportation proposal that was presented to us for 2022, 2023. Well, we're going to read about it, we'll discuss it a little bit.
So the only way we could really do the price comparison was looking between the two companies with the 5-year pricing for a 77-passenger gas bus. And so MTE was the better price for that, and they're also the ones that are offering the only company that's offering the 83-passenger buses. So the question on the table would be, do we want to go with the leasing of the 3 83-passenger gas buses from MTE with the cameras?
Any questions? Get my bearing. Some of these were 3 years, we're going to move up to 5-year leases on these proposed 83-passenger buses.
Yes, the leases were all up, and the proposal is to replace the expiring leases with going from 77-passenger to 83-passenger for all 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then Deborah would like to be able to look at a activity bus. Nothing's available at this point, but she just wanted to mention that now so we're aware.
And that's a good idea, too. It opens the door for other drivers for these sporting events that may not be a CDL holder,
Yeah.
It saves us costs. So.
For example, Christy's driven an activity bus many times to different games. And I don't know sometimes there's just no other option. There's not a driver available to do that. If we got kids going out to multiple places, we can have a district employee drive those activity buses. We can't use those to transport kids to and from school, but we can use them to transport to an activity. But say we have a group of 15 that needs to go somewhere. You can't fit that on one activity bus. If we had 2, and likely you'd have a coach and a assistant coach or another adult that would be able to attend, and then we can get kids where they need to go. But that's not part of the proposal for tonight, just the 3 expiring 77 leases going to 83s.
And I don't see, does the cameras need to be a part of the motion as well, or is that going to be covered?
That's within the lease, the way it's listed on the
Okay.
paperwork.
The new cameras?
Yes.
All right. If there's no further questions on this, I need a motion and a second to approve the transportation proposal for 2022 to 2023 as presented. Carlos? Jason? Roll call? Yes. Moving to the review for approval of the 2020-2021 annual audit, shared service report, and fiscal efficiency schedule. Yeah, let's see
I
here.
don't know if there's anything else that you would like to share after hearing from Kent tonight. I think we relayed that our score moved up to a 3.9 out of 4. So that's good standing with ISB. And we will get the audit submitted to the ROE, to the state board, to the 3 county clerks, to 5 site, to all the different places where it needs to go, hopefully by end of week. Our audit is late this year. There's been a lot of COVID impact on getting that done. It was typically due in November or October, and then we had some extensions and went past those, but we're ready now and ready to submit that tomorrow morning.
Any questions? A motion, a second to approve the 2020-2021 annual financial report, shared service report, and the fiscal efficiency from the Blue Ridge School District 18 conducted by Mulch, Yawkey, Brown, and Cole, LLC, Shelbyville, Illinois, as presented. Chelsea? Carlos? Roll call? Yes. Need a motion, a second to move from open session to closed session for appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, dismissal of specific employees of the district, and collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives at 7:39 p.m. Carlos? Chelsea? Roll call. Yes, thank you.
I think we're doing great.